Welcome to our Smart Take, post-pandemic outlook for arts and culture in Northwest Arkansas virtual event. I'm Worth Sparkman, Northwest Arkansas reporter at Axios, coming to you from Fayetteville. Welcome to our audiences on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and on Axios.com. You can join the conversation today on Twitter with @Axios at hashtag Axios Events. Over the next 30 minutes, I will be joined by my colleague, Alex Golden. We will discuss the outlook for arts and culture following pandemic closures and look at how the industry will continue to cultivate economic prosperity for the region. Our first guest is the president and CEO of the Walton Arts Center, Peter Lane, joining us from Fayetteville. Hi, Peter.
Thank you for having us.
Glad you're here. I wanted to talk with you a little bit about the Walton Arts Center and how it has gone post-pandemic. So obviously your venue was very much impacted by the last year and a half. What were the biggest challenges for you and your staff?
Well, we were one of the first industries to shut down, and quite frankly, one of the last to fully resume full operations. And our business is essentially about gathering large groups of people and presenting world-class artists from all over the world. And so we had to rethink everything. It was a huge challenge and an opportunity in many ways, but it gave us permission to explore new models and presenting new artists.
So how did you stay afloat during that time? Can you talk about the support that you had from the community?
Well, as soon as we realized, yeah, absolutely. So as soon as we realized everything was just completely going to stop, we really and get suspended. We just really had to rethink everything. And so, with the horizon of artists not traveling and doing the kinds of things, which meant nobody was buying tickets, which means a complete loss of revenue. We had to pivot. And the first thing we did is we launched the Ghostlight Recovery Fund. And this was something to help us stay operational. And it was designed to do a couple of things. First of all, to generate support that allowed us to keep the majority of our full-time staff employed. It also allowed us to keep our facilities operational. We also leaned into the opportunity to look at local artists and give them some programming options, as well as provide an outlet for many of our community members. And so the neat thing was over almost 1,100 businesses and individuals came together, supported us through that, raising over $1.2 million, which allowed us to basically invest that back into the community. And we ended up presenting about 140 different shows over that year-plus time period. We hired over almost 350 artists, of which almost about 87% were local and regional. And it provided an opportunity for almost 30,000 people in this community to either experience the performing arts online or in person in a different way.
That's fantastic. So where are you now in terms of being fully operational?
Well, the good news is we're back. We delayed our season at the Walmart Amp, and we sort of started in July, went through much later than normal through October, but we managed to get in about 27 shows. I mean, if you think about it, the appetite for the public to come back and see shows after 19 months was huge. And what was great to see was the enthusiasm for people to come to an outdoor space like the Walmart Amp. And we had attendance that was about 191,000 this year out there. So it was a jam-packed season, but it was great to see. On the Walton Arts Center side, which is, of course, indoor, we started a bit later. We went into full operation mode, meaning people shoulder to shoulder, about September. And our first Broadway show was at the end of October. And again, the pent-up demand was incredible. From my perspective, to stand at the door and see people flood in, and of course everybody's wearing masks, but I could tell people were smiling. But the the emotion of being able to come back and experience the live performing arts with others. That shared experience is like nothing other. And it was just so great to see it.
Yeah, I agree. I saw some of that firsthand. There was a lot of enthusiasm around coming back together. So, what are your guidelines right now, both indoors and outdoors, so that attendees feel safe?
Yeah. So at the Walmart AMP, it really was somewhat of an artist's choice. And we had some artists who said, hey, look, we need to see some proof of vaccinations and negative COVID tests. We test all of our staff. We require full time to be fully vaccinated. Um, but the artists make those decisions in terms of both the audience and what they want backstage. And so our Walmart AMP season has come to a close, and we're planning on a spectacular summer for next year. At the Walton Arts Center, we had some enhanced protocols that we established in August when we really saw the peak of infection rates go way up, hospitalizations rates go up. And so we asked at that time for patrons to show a negative test or a vaccination card. We've relaxed that because what we've seen is, fortunately, the infection rates have gone down, hospitalizations gone down, so we've now you just need to wear a mask when you come to the Walton Arts Center. And so whether you're a patron or a staff member or an artist, of course, the artist protocols backstage are a little, they vary depending on if it's a Broadway show or an individual or circus act, whatever it might be. But in general, at this point, our attendees just need to wear a mask and to come see the balance of our season. Of course, if the rates change, if we see infections go back up and hospitalizations dramatically increase, we reserve the right, and we'll make adjustments. But right now, that's sort of where we're at.
That's great, great. Well, and you mentioned artists, and you have a lot of neighbors in downtown Fayetteville. You've got a lot of restaurants and hotels. At least some of their business is dependent upon the Walton Arts Center as a cultural icon, as a staple to draw people. Do you have any sense of how your being back in operation has impacted your neighbors?
Well, we get bear hugs all the time from our restaurant partners. Look, they've had it really rough, as has a lot of industries. But we've been partnered with the Americans for the Arts for the past 15 years, doing an economic overview of the impact of arts and culture in Northwest Arkansas. And we've learned a lot of that. Now, we know that the impact is in the tens of millions. And just the latest study, which is actually a few years old now, showed about a $63 million impact on our community. And the way they calculate that is we know that when somebody buys a ticket, and there's almost 200,000 people at the Walmart AMP, a couple 100,000 here at the Walton Arts Center, after people buy a ticket, somewhere between an additional $35 to $70 per person is spent. Think about it, at restaurants or after getting a cup of coffee or paying the babysitter or parking, whatever it might be. And that just really, we have seen those numbers in our community continue to rise. And so we know that it's pretty well documented that the economic impact on all of this is pretty significant. In addition to which, 20% of our Walmart AMP patrons come from out of town. They all have to stay in hotels. So that number goes from 35 on top of a ticket spend to 70. So it's pretty amazing to see the kind of impact that an organization like ours has, but really not just us, but all of our arts organizations combined.
Yeah, so not just a cultural staple, but also an economic driver in Northwest Arkansas. So you're entering your 30th year, which is just amazing. What's on tap? What can patrons look forward to? And we've got just about a minute left, but want to hear any thoughts that you have about what's coming.
Well, Hamilton is coming. Good news. Smallest market in the country to have Hamilton. But we're moving as an institution, and I think a lot of arts institutions are moving from this crisis mode and survival mode to now going back to planning. And here at the Walton Arts Center, the Walmart AMP, we believe every person needs to have an opportunity to enjoy the performing arts. So we'll dig back in now and focus on that strategy and our strategic plan to make sure that everybody in this community has an opportunity, whether they can get a free ticket to see an art show, see a major act at the Walmart AMP, or come see Hamilton. Our job is to make sure there's something in the palette for everybody. And so that will be our focus and our efforts going forward.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. I know my family will be there to see Hamilton. So look forward to seeing you around town. And thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And next, we have a View from the Top segment with my colleague, Chief People Officer at Axios, Dominique Taylor.
Thank you. And thank you to the Northwest Arkansas Council for sponsoring this event. I'm Dominique Taylor, Chief People Officer at Axios, and joining me is Olivia Walton, Chairperson, Crystal Bridges, and the Momentary. Welcome, Olivia.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Olivia, you're a former national journalist from New York. How did you get involved in arts and economic development in Bentonville?
Yeah, I think it's safe to say I never expected to live in Arkansas, but I feel really lucky now that I live here. It's a great place to work, to raise small children. My husband and his family are from here, and they are very committed to revitalizing and developing the region. And it kind of just was a natural fit, honestly, for me to end up working in the arts. I've always been sort of a museum junkie. In large part, that is because my mother had an art gallery in New York City for about 20 years. I remember going to her gallery after school and doing my homework. She would drag me around to art fairs. And I think it's really a privilege, actually, to be in my role and to actually bring kind of thinking around how the arts can be a driver of economic development into programming and into kind of developing the community.
And some people may not think of Northwest Arkansas as a hub for the arts, but tell us why that's not true.
I know that's true, and that is certainly what I thought when I met my husband, but increasingly, I don't think that's the case. I really think Bentonville is on the map now for cultural tourists. So I constantly hear about people going to Marfa and Bentonville and Santa Fe. And the truth is, in the 10 years that Crystal Bridges has been open, we've had over 5.5 million people come through our door, and 25% of those are international. So we have grown a lot, and now I'm sitting here today in the tower bar of our newest art space called the Momentary. I say we're kind of a younger, grittier version of Crystal Bridges, and we're not just visual arts. We're heavy on performing arts, heavy on music. We've got a cool culinary program. We've got film projected on the tower. This is a former Kraft cheese plant, and it's really meant to kind of anchor a new downtown arts and culture district in Bentonville.
Those numbers speak for themselves. That's amazing. How have investments in the arts over the past decade impacted the region? And tell us what the next decade will look like too.
Yeah. No, I don't think people actually realize what a large share of the economy arts and culture represents. So nationally, arts and culture are 4.6% of GDP. That is more than construction. It's really significant. Here in Arkansas, we've seen reports that say that Crystal Bridges alone has generated over $135 million in economic activity. We directly support over 300 jobs across the state. There are over 3,000 cultural organizations. It's about $2 billion to Arkansas GDP. So these are really significant numbers overall. And, you know, I think it's not just about what we kind of spend directly or what we invest directly into the museums. It's about the knock-on benefits. So for example, we just had a really cool bluegrass music festival. We had about 4,000 people down there on the Momentary Green. And yeah, we lost a little money, meaning, you know, we spent more on it than we made in ticket sales and drinks. But it's totally worth it to us because we're taking a bigger picture view of what this is doing to develop Bentonville. Because think about how many hotel rooms were booked. Think about how many dollars were spent at coffee shops and restaurants and stores. Think about how many new people came to Northwest Arkansas and are now dying to come back to, you know, ride the trails and visit Crystal Bridges. That's kind of the way we think about it.
That's great. And how does building economies and communities grounded in arts and culture create generational change?
Well, I think it's really significant to kind of focus on having an authentic local regional arts community. And so we're focused not just on, importing art and artists. It's important to us that we are figuring out the building blocks that need to be in place to really support working regional artists. And so we support organizations that do professional coaching. We think about how to create more studio space for those artists. We think about what investments need to be made in affordable housing so that it's possible to really live and work here. We sometimes talk about creating a super highway for artists. You see all over the country, the artists will go to a less expensive part of town. Suddenly that becomes the cool part of town because they're there. And then suddenly they get priced out and leave. We're trying to make sure that doesn't happen.
I love that term, superhighway of artists. And how does investing in a creative economy inspire innovation? Innovation is so important for companies, organizations, countries. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's so important to have art to spark innovation, to spark creative thinking, and also to attract talent. And we think about it not just having art siloed, but how can we kind of weave art into the fabric of everyday life and into the business community? And that's something I think the Momentary in particular can do. And another example of this is we have an initiative called Oz Art, which really focuses on bringing art into public life. So it's a collection of over 300 works of contemporary artists. We have those on display in public places, in restaurants, in hotels. That Oz Art also has more and more sculpture, which we put out in town or on the bike trails. And we've done mural projects. Those have even been statewide. And so I think we'll be doing a lot more of that because the more you can inspire people to see things in a new way, to think about things differently, to kind of, it creates empathy and imagination.
I love that. And as you think about what's to come, can you tell us what you're most excited about for arts in Northwest Arkansas?
Yeah, top of the list, the Crystal Bridges expansion. We recently announced that we are going to add 100,000 square feet of exhibition space to the building. So, and alongside that physical expansion, we've kind of doubled down on our mission of telling a more inclusive story of the history of American art and welcoming all. And so that also meant we have announced a commitment to craft and to Indigenous art, because so often craft and Indigenous art have been traditionally overlooked in the telling of the history of American art. So I'm super excited about that and what that means for our programming, our education, and our exhibitions. And I'm also excited about things we're doing through Oz Art. I think we're going to build another sculpture park in town. We're trying to figure out how we can work with other groups like the High Line perhaps in New York and kind of create newness in outdoor sculpture rather than just buying these monoliths and having them stay. Can we do something where we're commissioning new art and rotating it through other locations and expanding our mural project across town? There's so much physical development in town. The Walmart headquarters is kind of half mile out the left window, and downtown has 3 cranes buildings and down in the traditional downtown square. There's so much building going on. We've said, all right, well, so if we have to create all these big, ugly parking garages, we should put giant murals on the side of them. So it's very much an integral part of what we're thinking about is how to kind of make sure that Bentonville is an arts destination.
I love that. Art's everywhere in Arkansas, and I can't wait to visit after this conversation. Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you.
And thank you again to the Northwest Arkansas Council for sponsoring this event. Now back to my colleague.
Thanks, Dominique. I'm Alex Golden, Northwest Arkansas reporter for Axios. Our final guest is the founding president and executive director of the Rave Cultural Foundation, Srivijaya Venkata, joining us from Bentonville. Thanks for being here.
Hello.
Well, first off, will you tell us a little bit about what the Rave Foundation does and also a little bit about why you founded it?
For more than 10 years now I've lived here for 13 plus years. And for more than 10 years of that, we found a big need here in the community, in the Indian community, for keeping in touch with their traditions, especially through art, through music and dance. Everyone wants their children to learn Indian traditional music, dance, and so on. And so we had facilitated annual programs that would do that earlier. And about 3 years ago, we decided to start Rave Cultural Foundation in full earnest because we wanted to give it a good push, a good presence. We wanted to see more diverse programming in the area. There's only so much of English-based things we wanted to see. So we wanted to see more multicultural experiences. So combination of all that is what Rave Cultural Foundation is. Our focus is to promote Indian performing arts in the area, and not just for the Indian community, but also for the wider community that enjoys something different.
Gotcha. I'd really love to hear your take on the role of arts and culture in Northwest Arkansas in general, the importance of it in this area as we're growing. What would you like to see happen here?
So I grew up, a very big part of my life, I grew up in Delhi, the capital of India. And I grew up watching dances, performances, music from all over India. And you'll be amazed at the variety that exists in the country itself. And then I had the good fortune of seeing a lot of European concerts, music, dance. I've seen flamenco and Kathak on the same stage. I've seen theater in different languages. I was just recently talking to somebody about the Bentonville Film Festival and how, I so enjoyed watching movies from different parts of the world when I was in Delhi. So all this enriches you, it makes you understand that we are all one global village, and it develops a healthy relationship with each other, right? Love and respect for humanity, not just, I want only my part of the world to shine or something like that. So there's so much variety. I mean, there's just so many beautiful things in this world, and why not experience it, right? And that's what I want to see here in Bentonville. I mean, this is home to a company that does business in the whole world. There are people from all over the world who live here. And I would love to see all those cultures represented in different ways also, and interact with them and learn more about this global village.
Got it. Can you tell me a little bit about how the pandemic affected your organization as it did many entertainment and arts and culture organizations? And now that we are bouncing back a little bit, how you're recovering, and are you going back to in-person events? Kind of what does it look like right now?
Gosh, I am going to roll my eyes on that. Okay. Yeah, it's been quite the ride, huh? This pandemic, it has challenged us in just so many ways, starting from so arts are all about mental health, about you and yourself, right? I mean, at different levels. It's not just the physical. It's not like just going and doing exercise with your body, right? It's about rhythm. It's about music. It's about something different. It's about watching the visual side of it. There's so many pieces to it. It's an experience which brings you closer to yourself, and it has to be experienced in person. And to have to move that online into a box like this, to limit the vision, to limit that experience in so many ways was very challenging. It felt like we were doing a disservice to the arts. But in this particular situation, obviously, it was perhaps the best thing we could do to keep people connected with the arts in some way or the other. And it challenged us as an organization, and also in ways like, for example, we've never produced a show. And what I mean by that is we've never had to worry about camera angles, about the script, because typically we will book a group of artists and they will do, they perform on stage. That's what they do. So they'll take care of that. We've never had to do that. And now with all the recording, suddenly we were put in a position where we had to think about all that, and we had to learn very quickly on our feet. And it's not easy to suddenly just move your programming in that direction where you've never had any experience or guidance. So I will say that, our funders, were so patient with us, and, I have to say that we were well taken care of. I have to say that, because if people had said, oh, we can't do this anymore, we can't support you anymore, blah, 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 and all these, if no had been an answer, then really nothing could have happened. We couldn't have done anything. And I have to say the family stepped up. The parents brought their children one by one. We had to come up with all these very different ways of filming children so that it was safe for them. It was a very chaotic 2 years, but I think now we have a much better understanding of what it is, how to pivot online, how to do it in person in safer ways. We still have very limited participation opportunities, but we have them. We offer online versions of most of the classes and performances that we do. And we somehow want people to continue to stay in touch with the arts, because that's so essential to us as individuals and as a society, of course.
Sure. I believe you saw that there was a recent study done by a local dance artist, Karen Castleman, that looked at specifically all the dance organizations in Northwest Arkansas. And one of the key findings was that people are not familiar with a lot of them, and that's why they don't always participate. And so I'm curious, what do you think can be done just to raise awareness? Like what can your organization and organizations like yours do to maybe engage the community more and let them know?
I think one of the biggest challenges is venue. Like we don't have a standard venue where people can expect to come and find dance, especially. Dance needs a venue. Like music, you can go anywhere, you can stand, you can play the guitar, you have a mic, you have a speaker, and, whatever, you're done. I'm sure the musicians are going to come after me for that. But dance requires a level floor. You need a little space to dance, to move. So that itself immediately, translates into having a standard venue. I think having a standard venue would help a lot in bringing the focus on dance, because we don't have such a venue here in Bentonville, especially for local dancers. So I'm hoping starting with something like that, even if it's just a small place, I think will go a long way in bringing the attention and focus on dance. And Karen Castleman is amazing. Her energy to keep dance right in the center of everyone's conversations, her energy is amazing. Yeah, we are very happy to work with her on that. Yes.
Srivijaya, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity. It was great chatting.
Thank you all for joining us this afternoon for another virtual conversation that has made everyone smarter, faster. For more information or to sign up for the Northwest Arkansas newsletter, visit axios.com/newsletter/local or on the Axios app. Thank you all for joining, and we'll see you on axios.com.
Thank you.